Everyone wants more money, but most of us weren't taught how to create an abundant life. That's where the law of attraction, manifesting success stories show comes in. If you are ready to have more money, create more freedom, and experience more fun, turn the volume up. It's time to learn how to create the prosperity and life you have been dreaming of. Here's your host, Cassie Parks.
Hello, and welcome to this very special episode. I am your host, Cassie Parks, and today I am here with Kimberly I'm going to call it a bonus episode, and we're going to talk about vulnerability and how and what that has opened up for Kimberly in her life. So first, what's awesome? As always, I can't leave that question unanswered.
What's awesome is my script shows up every single day. And so this will kind of go into what our conversation is about today. But I got a text message this morning and it was right out of my script. And it said, "Good morning, beautiful," with a rose emoji.
That's awesome. I love when that happens.
Yes. And then I got an "I love you," not just love you. I love you. Have a great day. So yeah, totally out of my script. But again, it was just slightly different, but better.
Yes. That's amazing.
Yeah.
All right. So let's backtrack a little. At this point when we're recording this, it's September 2020. And a couple weeks ago, Mia's interview on where we talked about vulnerability and her showing up to a call and being vulnerable came out. Yeah. And so that's sort of what's sparked this whole event and then this interview. So actually, I'm going to back up and ask you, what did you think before that interview? How would you have defined or described vulnerability and how it applied to your life? Does that make sense?
Yes. So being vulnerable to me actually was a weakness. Mm-hmm. That's like, I wasn't even open to being vulnerable. Mm-hmm. I think there were times that I would attempt to be vulnerable. For me, I'm a strong, independent woman. I don't need anything or anybody helping me do anything. I got it. that was kind of my mindset. Mm-hmm. And so to open up and be vulnerable was, well, actually, honestly, it just scared the shit out of me. Like, that was not on my radar. I had no interest in even going there. Like, I could just get through life doing exactly what I would. I didn't even need to look at that. Like, it was just not even, I probably just didn't want to go there. Maybe I was avoiding being vulnerable, but not realizing at the time that that's what I was doing, because I'm strong and independent and I had my shit together.
Right.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
And then Mia came on a phone call, and I was on that phone call where she was vulnerable, and I didn't know Mia a whole lot other than and she was always kind of quiet. So that was the first time I actually heard her talk, a lot. And I was like, wow. I'm like, here's this strong woman who's normally silent, and she's just putting it all out there. And I was really intrigued by that. I don't know that that's the right word. I was also inspired. I think inspired was probably the biggest thing. And then, of course, everything's in alignment for me. I always laugh because I get an assignment. I'm like, that's in alignment with what's going on right now. Perfect. But you had released Mia's interviews. And so I listened to them. And she talked about being vulnerable and how it was scary. And one of the things that really stuck out in one of the interviews was her asking for help. She wasn't used to doing that. And then I remember you gave her an assignment, and I forget her partner's name.
Tracy,
yeah. Asked Tracy for help, and she had to do it 20 times in one day or something. And then when she got to a point, she's like, "Okay, that's it. I'm not asking for any more help." So that just really, I kept replaying certain key points over and over in my head, and I'm like, there's something here. And what those interviews did for me was kind of opened up a door that I didn't realize. I mean, I had it slammed shut, and we're talking not just slammed shut. It had like metal bars locked up tight. Like they're like probably, don't want to make it over exaggerated, but it was slammed shut about being vulnerable. And those interviews came at the right time. Because a week ago, if you had asked me if I wanted to be vulnerable, let's back up a week and a half. If I wanted to be vulnerable, I'd have been like, no, thanks, I'm good. I'm just going to stay over here. Yet I was inspired by Mia, and then inspired, I'm going to say, by my future self, because one of the things that I script is that I'm authentically me every single day. And being vulnerable, I think, opens up doors and allows people in that I didn't realize I was keeping out. So a week and a half ago, if you had asked me, because my marriage was on the rocks, I found out that he was talking to somebody. He loved me, but he wasn't in love with. There's all these things, all these things that I'm like, and of course, my go-to is, how do I fix this?
Right.
And nothing was working. And then vulnerability came up, and it was really interesting because those interviews, I always say that Google listens because I got this random email about marriage and being vulnerable. And so I was like, there's something here. And I was inspired. He had stopped by for something, and it was almost as if someone came through me and I spoke from the heart. And I laid it all out on I'm going to call it the counter, because we weren't standing at the table, but I literally was vulnerable and said, yes, I'm a strong, independent woman, but I need and want you in my life. And lots of other things were said. But I showed up vulnerable, and I had never done that before. And of course I cried. I cried. But it was heartfelt, and it was vulnerable, and there were nerves behind it. Like I could feel there was a calmness, but there was also like I had an inner shakiness, but I just knew that I wanted to show up vulnerable, and I did it. It wasn't as bad as I thought it would be, this whole being vulnerable thing.
Right.
And what it did is it opened a door that allowed my husband and I to communicate in a way we hadn't communicated before. It allowed him to say how he was feeling, because here, he's thinking I'm this strong, independent woman. I don't need him. So me saying that, hey, I'm showing up vulnerable, allowed him to communicate in ways that so again, it just, being vulnerable opened up so many different ways to, again, I don't want to say fix it, but it opened that door, and it was all inspired. Again, I wouldn't have done it 2 weeks ago if I hadn't been inspired. And then I can say that now, he's back home. And there's so many details in between all of that, but it was the being vulnerable part that was truly life-changing. I didn't think that was the answer, because I thought that was being weak.
Right.
But it's, So I don't know if any of that made any sense, or if you have anything to add to that, Cassie. So I also showed up vulnerable again. Like I recognize that I'm being more vulnerable on a daily basis.
Absolutely.
Not just with my husband. It's showing up in like my businesses. I did that live video yesterday, and I said, hey, when you buy from me, you're not just supporting me, you're helping me support my family. I never would have said that before, because I'm like, no, I'm great at being a business owner.
Right.
And I got, so it's opened up so many other opportunities and things that, again, it's still so new. So I'm still kind of in awe of it all. But yes, being vulnerable, oh, wow. Scary, but so worth it. And of course, I'm blessed because I have the Enchanted Circle to jump on there and say, hey, I don't know what I'm doing. Help me.
Yes, I wanted to bring that up for listeners, because while this is the first time with your husband, I don't think that's the first moment. I think you have been opening and practicing this vulnerability in the safe space of the Enchanted Circle, right? Where there's no way it's going to go wrong, or be, I don't even know how to put my finger on, but like you said, it's scary and there is a fear to that, right? Which is why a lot of people avoid it in their outside life.
Yes.
But it's okay. And you've been practicing in that very safe space for a while.
Thank you for saying that, because I didn't make that connection that I had been practicing in the Enchanted Circle.
Mm-hmm.
Like I show up, like I love when I don't want to miss a call.
Yeah.
And sometimes life that happens, but
yeah.
so I'm going to have to sit with that, because I didn't make the connection. Again, that's why Cassie's so good at what she does. She catches the things that we may not recognize,
Mm-hmm.
in the ways that we grow. And so yeah, I was practicing.
Yeah.
Heck yeah, I was.
Yeah, exactly.
That's awesome.
Especially, I mean, the timing of it, because I think when you found, like, you have been practicing being more and more vulnerable, and that call when you got which again, everything lines up, even when we don't see it. We talked a little bit about the pebble in the shoe in the last interview, but you found out that he was seeing someone else or talking to someone, whatever it was, right before a call. And I think in that moment, you thought that was inconvenient timing, but it was so convenient and so leading to all of this, because you could come on and you could fully feel that and all the things that needed to be felt to really open up the cleanest slate to even be, not to even be vulnerable, but that led that vulnerability to even open up this, to grow in this clean space for your marriage. Yeah.
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 And hearing you say that, there's more ahas there. Like, I'm still connecting those dots. That's like, wow, that's really cool.
Yeah.
Because yeah, you're right. I found out just before I jumped on that call that night, and I was in that moment, I was devastated. And I remember crying, and I was just, yeah. And I know that feeling my feelings definitely is helpful. So yeah, in total alignment. So thank you for that. I didn't, again, connect those dots. That's practicing. I've been practicing being vulnerable. And yes, the universe is amazing how all those things just flow in ways that we can't imagine.
Yeah. I love that. And I love connecting the dots, which is like why I love doing these interviews a lot, because it helps you guys see that. And that's powerful, right? To go, oh yeah, that happened, and see all the pieces. I mean, you were already seeing a lot of the pieces, and then to see even more is really fun and cool. And I will tell you, that interview with Mia, I went, not because I wasn't, it was nothing to do with it was a little bit to do with the interview, but it was at the sort of the end beginning of like what I call a year for you guys, right? It's always, for me, I'm like, okay, is this the end of sort of a year, or is this the beginning of a new year?
Right.
And it was interesting because with that interview, I went back and forth. Like, is this the end and this is what's opening up this new story? Like, is this the end of the season and it's going to open another? I always think of it like a show. It's going to open the next season, or is this the opener of the next season? And I went back and forth for a while, and even like had a note on my spreadsheet for my assistant, like this might go with next year. And things just happened that I was like, oh, goes out this year. And it was so perfect for Mia. It was so perfect for you. And so everything is always working once we're clear about what we want and where we're going. It's always working for us, even the things that we don't know behind the scenes.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I'm thankful that the universe said, that you were inspired to release that, because it truly, that was the, again, recognizing now that you pointed that out, I was practicing already, but it was Mia's interview that really kind of, I don't want to say pushed me.
Yeah.
But it was more like it nudged me.
Yeah.
And it was perfect timing for the nudge.
That's amazing.
Yeah, just like the pebble in my sandal Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, I am forever, forever grateful. And yeah, so being vulnerable was it feels really good, like to own it. Because I think before it was, outside of myself. It was something that I couldn't be or do. And I like that I can be vulnerable. I'm owning doing that. And it feels really good because I feel like it makes me more trusting, because that's something else that was scripting, is that I am grateful, I am trusting. And yet here I was not being vulnerable. So
right. And when we're not vulnerable, we are not trusting, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
So, scripting that is like, well, okay, now looking back, that makes sense. I'm scripting, I'm more trusting. Being vulnerable means I'm trusting, So that right there, and again, there are so many things that are priceless about being a part of the Enchanted Circle and the scripting and everything that goes, with your program and you and who you are. But being trusting, I want to be more trusting. And so opening up that door to being vulnerable, now I am more trusting. And so that's just amazing. So I'm excited to see what other opportunities, that the universe brings my way.
Yes. Oh, I love it. All right. So if there's a listener listening going, I think I've been strong and I haven't been vulnerable, what advice would you give them?
Vulnerability is not a weakness. It is a strength. And if you join the Enchanted Circle and work with Cassie, you have a support system from day one, a place to show up and be vulnerable and work through those. And then you have the opportunity to practice it in real life. And so, yeah, being vulnerable is being strong.
It is.
Yeah, it's being strong.
Yay! Yay! Anything else on your heart or your mind that you want to make sure to share today?
Just from the bottom of my heart, Cassie Parks, I am so thankful for the day that you were born. And that the universe, brought you into my life. And that's a fun story too, but I'm just thankful for you in the Enchanted Circle. And I'm so excited because every day I am living a magical life.
Yay! Amazing.
Yay!
I am so glad you're here. I'm so glad you all joined us for this amazing interview. Thank you, Kimberly, for sharing this very vulnerable moment in your life with us. I am so excited for you, and I'm so excited for all you listening who are a little more open to vulnerability, because Kimberly is lighting the way. So thank you.
I love helping people manifest money, because when you're learning to use the law of attraction, money is such a great tool. It gives such instant feedback. There's so many opportunities to see how the energy is flowing through you and where you might be getting tripped up or not allowing it to come in. So if you've had trouble manifesting in the past, you might want to use money as a way to learn how to use the law of attraction. Now, I have helped thousands of people manifest millions of dollars using my system Manifest 10K. And now I would love to invite you to join me complimentary and pay based on your success. You heard me right. You can join, get access to my very successful program, the Enchanted Circle, and most of all, my coaching for when you get stuck. And then you can pay me 10% of what you manifest after you're successful. If this sounds good to you, go to payafteryoumanifest.com to apply. That's payafteryoumanifest.com.
Thank you for joining us on the Law of Attraction, Manifesting Success Stories show. To learn how to identify your current money story, go to identifyyourmoneystory.com.